Welcome to the virtual programs and teaching STEM. How do you go about taking all those great STEM experiences that we already have and now making them virtual for the world that we're living in, whether it's more people having access or sometimes being forced to socially distance? Chandra, what is your favorite STEM activity to teach?
My favorite STEM activity to teach is the tower building activity. And I use that activity for more than just shooting sports, but it's a great activity to use with a group in person, but it's also a great activity that a youth can do one by themselves at home to gain independence and mastery and to use the engineering process.
So pretty sure my favorite is Fruit Loop shooters. And so giving everybody their Fruit Loops or Cheerios and a plastic spoon and seeing how far they can go. And you can see in this picture, we also gave them paper plates that they made their Fruit Loop shooters with. So welcome everybody. We're excited to have you here today. I'm Tammy Stewart, Extension Educator from Nebraska and a Coordinator Trainer. And our other host today is?
I'm Chandra Giles, and I'm an Extension Educator from Nebraska. I'm also a Level 3 Coordinator Trainer.
So the outcome of today is for you to have some ideas and tools so you can have that motivation and the confidence to use the scientific method and the engineering process to teach STEM virtually. Those will be the two main parts today. And then we are going to end today with Dr. White telling us about the new challenge coming up that would have been the week of the national championships, which is the 4-H Shooting Sports Quiz Bowl. So that's where we'll be going here in the next 20 to 25 minutes. What's this about, Chandra?
So you need to define your audience, and it's easy to figure out which ages and stages you're teaching to and teach to that group. And so you need to find out who needs the lesson you're teaching. Are they new to shooting sports, or are they an established group, or the most experienced kids who may be seniors already?
And just as a reminder, just because we're going virtually with STEM, it doesn't change our general outline for a lesson plan, where we want to gain the learner's attention by a startling fact, asking a question, saying the pledges, whatever that may be, letting them know what they're going to do so they can tune their body in and be ready, what they're going to learn so they can tune their brain in, establishing your credibility as an instructor, just like Chandra and I did, and then finally teach that concept. Those first 4 items together shouldn't take more than 1 minute of your lesson, but the teaching is where you're going to spend the majority of your probably 30 minutes that you'll have youth online for online learning. And then of course, we want to make sure we finish up with the wrap up and debrief, because that is what is going to cement the learning of your outcome in their mind.
So the engineering process is what we're going to go over first here, and begins with an ask. So they'll ask a question, then they'll imagine the answer, they'll plan, and then they'll create, test, and improve. And so we're going to talk about a project called Model Building today. It's a project that concentrates on bones and muscles. And for this project, you need Twizzlers and toothpicks, and round toothpicks work the best. And so they're going to create a person out of licorice. And this person needs to be able to hold up something. You can use a marker, you can use a pen, you can use whatever you want as the firearm for that young person to use to hold up their Twizzler person that they're going to make.
So just looking at the chat for a minute, the question is this being recorded? Yes, it is. And just as a reminder that if you would like your privacy, you're welcome to not have your picture on and to put something different in the name. So what is this that you have? You just told us we're learning about engineering, Chandra, but then you have teaching the science of stamps. So tell me more about how that connection there.
So we're learning the engineering science of how your stance works together. And basically the students are going to build a human body that is holding whatever firearm they have for their discipline in the stance for their discipline. And so they get to choose a stance that they would like to use and then build a human out of uh, Twizzlers and toothpicks. The toothpicks are for the bones and the Twizzlers are for the muscles. See if they can't make that into something that will actually hold weight and bear weight. So they're going to demonstrate the differences between using muscles and bones, use the engineering process behind why a position is steady, and take care of their muscles and bones through healthful living, which is one of the national 4-H things that we need to teach. So they're going to ask how. They're going to ask, how do bones and muscles work together to provide a solid stance? And so in their discipline, and so they can apply this to their discipline, they can apply this to the particular stance that they are doing. Then they're going to imagine, how can I make this stance steady? So as they start to think about how they're going to build their licorice person, that's where they're imagining. And then they plan, okay, what am I going to do here? And then they start to create and they actually build their little person who is going to be the shooter in this instance. And then they're going to test, is this stable? So I have my little person that I built this morning and he's falling apart now, or she. And so then the question is, once they build it, then they're going to test it and see if it's stable or not. So I can test my little person with another piece of licorice or with something else. And if it doesn't hold what it's supposed to hold, then it's not going to work, correct? And so then they have to figure out what's a better way to put this. Maybe they didn't put the toothpicks through the hole inside the licorice. And so they have to think through the process of what they should do. As they think through it, they might say, well, the bones would be inside of the muscles. And so maybe I do need to put the toothpick through the hole of the licorice in order to get enough stability. And so as they go through this, they think through the process and they test it. And then they go to, how do I make it better? How can I keep, and then they also need to ask, how can I keep my muscles and bones healthy? And you can go into the nutrition part of that as well. And how the muscles, they will tire more easily. And so they need to use more bones in their stance. And it really helps to talk to them about, and then how they can apply that when they go out into the field.
So the kids in the picture, that looks like a makeshift bow or something. Is that right?
Yes, they were building an archery stance, and that is their makeshift bow. And obviously they were having a lot of fun, and this was an in-person activity. Again, you can use this virtually though, and youth can do it at home by themselves. If they have brothers and sisters at home as well, it really works well in groups because they do seem to have a lot of fun working together doing it.
Well, or just even having them show everybody on the screen what they did.
Right.
Be a good thing. And then improving, right? Stealing others' ideas. So
exactly.
This is one of my most favorite activities. I'm excited to do this. Did you want to do a debrief on it?
Sure, Tammy. What did you learn doing this activity? What is your highlight, low light, and your insight from it?
Well, of the many times I've done this one, my highlight usually is that at some point I can get the stance to work. My low light is the frustration because usually I'm only given licorice and I have to go through the whole engineering cycle before the instructor will give me toothpicks. And so I always get frustrated because I can't make just the muscles work. And my insight is definitely the triangles needed to have a great stance in any of the disciplines.
Very good. And so you can use model building in other ways as well. And this is an example of another STEM activity that you can do with your youth. You can do a aerial shot and use Google Maps or a satellite view and have them do a range setup. And if you had, what would you need to do this more accurately, Tammy?
This is actually my fairground, so I get this. I would do a couple things. Number one, I would label more of the buildings and make sure the roads were marked. Maybe because of the roads coming on the fairgrounds, I'd probably put road A, B, C, D. And then definitely I would have some type of key that shows distance. So whether they're putting up an archery range or a muzzleloader range or whatever, they would be able to look for distances. You had an idea with COVID-19 and our restrictions on doing this. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we were talking about this, and as the youth move through the engineering process and go from the ask to the imagine to the plan to the create to the test, when they get to the improve, you could say, okay, if COVID restrictions are on us, where do we place the stand here spots so that they can stay 6 feet away from each other? How do we make sure that everyone is safe throughout this activity and process?
So the engineering cycle just becomes critical, right? Because we go from
Right.
the play to the range setup to our firearm of choice, and it can be applied across the board. So the scientific method, again, we learned all of this in 3rd or 4th grade. This is the one that we're going to use today. And no matter, once you start teaching it to your 4-Hers and your 4-H club, definitely I would stick with the same one. So then that way you have that consistency in learning. So keep that in mind. So these are the different steps, starting with an observation or a question. And the question that we're going to look at for today's experiment is there a difference in shooting a liquid, a solid, or a gas target? So put your hypothesis down in their little chat. What do you think? Is there going to be a difference? And if you want to expand on that in the chat, you can feel free to do that. So this is kind of like our research part, right? We're figuring it out, looking at other people's hypothesis. I don't see any coming up yet. Rachel's saying it'll be different. Jim's saying yes, it'll be different. Okay, so we have some hypothesis. Anne saying the bullets will not go through a solid. Interesting. Okay. So once we have our research done and our hypothesis made, we have to kind of look and figure out how we're going to conduct this experiment. So in this case, you can see the jug sitting out on a log here at our local shotgun range. And we're asking, does the target matter? So let's conduct the experiment. So you can see here, there are jugs filled with water, with sand, and then there will be another one with air. So you're about to watch 3 videos that take about 5 seconds each. We're gonna let them play through twice. So just kind of be watching for that liquid, the solid, and the gas different targets as we do this. I believe that one was the liquid. This is the solid, which we use sand for the solid. And I believe this one is the gas, or just air. So now that we've actually had the experiment, the youth would ideally do this in person, right? But this is one way that you can go virtual with the same experiment by, as a leader, going ahead and doing that experiment and then bringing back the jugs and showing them. So ideally, bring back the jug live, but I happen to have a picture. So we see the gas over on the left, the liquid in the middle, and the solid in the right. It's very tempting at this moment to jump to drawing conclusions, but to have great scientific skills, you want to make sure the kids actually review the results, analyze the results, and the data. So Chandra, be my youth. What do you see here? What are your observations?
Well, I see that the gas has a really tiny hole in it. And the liquid, it blew the top off. It looks like it blew the back off of the jug, and the front of the jug is just ripped to pieces. And the solid, it looks like maybe it made a bit larger hole, but it went right in. So.
And based off of your observations, now that you have these results and you're analyzing them, what conclusions would you draw on, does your target matter? If it is a solid, a liquid, or a gas?
Well, I would say that it does matter, because the gas, it exploded a lot. I mean, it went a long ways, and so you would have to be aware of that if you were shooting at something like that it's going to fly farther when you shoot it. The liquid, you're going to have to be careful that when the jug explodes, it doesn't hit someone or pieces don't fly off of it. And the solid is probably going to knock over, but not go a long ways.
So you can see the conclusions that she drew, right? And each of you probably are going to draw your own conclusions, but the great part about this is hopefully this is making you ask more questions. So you'll want to keep setting up this to see what it's about. Whether you want to start talking about backstops and why it's really important to have good berms behind, or why you do or don't shoot in water and what happens if you shoot in water. So these are some of the things that hopefully you'll get curious about, and then you'll keep working through that scientific method at your next club lesson with your youth. So now that you have seen how to use the engineering process virtually, as well as the scientific, what are some of the general STEM teaching tips? And then we'll go into virtual teaching tips. Sesame Street, seriously, Chandra, why Sesame Street on this?
I love Sesame Street. Who doesn't, right? They are great at getting attention, because they do. They use all the attention getters that are out there. They use emotion, questions, stories, movement, participation. And on their stories, they're short little clips, they're short little 30-second clips, and it just keeps the youth's attention. And so as we look at what we should do, we should use those same types of things.
And of course, the essential elements are not lost on virtual learning. They're a part of it. So the belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. So, right, I keep looking at you, trying to relate to my camera, even though I have the second screen over here. And Mr. Rogers was phenomenal at that. And then like when Chandra was talking about her licorice people and having people share that, or having the youth put something in the chat, that's where that mastery comes in, putting their hypothesis in the chat. Ideally, they would actually get to do the experiment. So one thing that I thought about with the types of matter is having 3 different balloons, and they each have a pin, and they pop the water balloon, the air balloon, and the balloon with sand. So something like that. Thinking about how you can have them have independence. And then of course, generosity is sharing with others or inviting others to come help them find out more, learn about the video so they can actually go out and conduct the experiments themselves. Wildcrafts and debriefing. What do you think that's about, Chandra?
Well, Tammy, how would you rate your experiment on a 1 to 10 scale, or everything you've learned today on a 1 to 10 scale?
Mine is probably going to be about a 9, and it would be a 10 if I got to hear from everybody else and hear all their tips on virtual teaching. And
Excellent.
what's been your highlight, low light insight from today?
Well, my highlight is that I get to be on with all of these great leaders. And low light would be that my Twizzler man fell apart. And my insight would be that teaching virtually can actually be really fun for the teacher as well as for the student.
So
Pam, you have a question in the chat box.
yes, there's actually several on there, so we'll definitely get to those. The virtual tips are making sure that you're taking those lessons and breaking them down. 30 minutes is more than enough for any type of online learning. Have fun. If you're not going to have fun at it, neither will the kids. So pick something that you would be fun for you. And then play and practice. Chandra and I sat here and practiced today to get ready. So practice with the technology. The videos earlier, she got to hear the sound, but not the picture. And so by practicing with that earlier, we were able to get the videos to come up in the right spot. And then just as like what Dave was doing, moderating and saying, hey, there's questions in the chat, watching for noises that might be coming up, things like that. Those are all some good tips to follow when teaching virtual. Chandra, what's this one about?
So your supplies, sometimes people wonder, how do I do supplies if it's virtual? But you can give them a list of supplies that they can collect at home before the activity. Or this is really fun. You can mail them the kits, and you can make up kits and actually mail them to them. And then as you unpack the supplies at the beginning of the lesson, you have them go through that. And sometimes it's like getting a gift. And the youth get really excited about these kits as they open them up and get to go through each piece and make sure they have all that they need for the activity. Also, if your office is open, you can have your supplies picked up as well.
I was just going to show, I'm teaching about flying on Tuesday. And so there's this kid, and as the kids get it, we'll pull this out together, and they'll pull out their kite and their glider and their 4-H frisbee. So it'll be kind of like Christmas and opening up a present. So when you're managing the live experiences, you'll notice during Jeopardy today when we've started that we've been using your names and having a person monitor. What's with the Energizer Bunny for a large group, Chandra?
Well, sometimes you need people to play off of it, or somebody to be there to just keep things moving, keep the activity lighter, ask questions, to maybe make a joke here and there, just to keep attention going.
Great, and I'll let you go ahead and finish out this slide as I get ready to answer the chat.
And you're going to want to organize a 6-foot area for hands-on activities, and you may want to have a video over the top of you if you're going to show them how to do something with your hands. And also, you want to open kits together if they have a kit, and that brings a bit of excitement to it. Also have breakout rooms, and if you have a breakout room where they're going to have a small group discussion, make sure you have a leader assigned who is trained previously to lead that group. Also stay on to help afterward or go in early the next day in case there's questions, and make sure that they have a phone number or contact information so that they can ask questions later. And again, like we did at the beginning, when we started ours, everyone was muted, and you needed to unmute if you were going to speak.
And just like Chandra said, that we'll actually stay on after Dave's done with his presentation today to answer questions, and if anybody wants to stay on to share ideas too. So with that, burning questions, let's go through this chat and see what burning questions have come up. Yes, the meeting has been recorded. What we'll do is we'll email you a link where to find the PowerPoint slides. And then Dave did put the resource for the Colorado STEM book that we used at the beginning Jeopardy game. And where do you find the recording? By what I did last time is I emailed it out to everybody that was signed up for this. And I'm sure that's what I'll do again, whether it's on my YouTube site or on the national website. So, and Dave says it will be linked on the national. So that is awesome. And then of course we have all your hypotheses that came in after that, which is great. Those are fun to read through. For this activity, are we expected to have someone shooting, or are your video clips available to use? I hadn't thought about that, Becky, but I don't know why I couldn't make them available. So, and then can you also email a link to all the lessons? I think we can. We can do that, right, Chandra?
Yes.
No. These seem to be offered live via voice. Have you tried posting lessons and having members do them independently? So there is rule number 11, or best practice number 11, that says that you should not be shooting without an instructor present. And so if it's going to involve shooting, I would not assign that out. I would use videos like we did today. But if it's like the Twizzlers and learning about muscles and bones, sure. I would have no problem posting those lessons so the members could work independently on them. So with that, I am turning this over to Dr. David White out of Oregon. And if before you guys take off, if you would post in the chat one thing you gained from this coffee today that you take forward, we would love to hear about it. David White, you are up.
Oh, well, congratulations, Tammy Chandra, for offering another great coordinator coffee. A shout out to everybody that joined us today from across the country. These coordinator coffees, I hope you're finding to be fun, enjoyable, educational. We'll continue to do them as long as people want them. I think without a doubt, we can say that COVID-19 tried to wreck our traditions this year. Many folks had their state, county fairs maybe canceled or modified. Certainly a number of state contests were canceled. And sadly enough, the National Committee had to make a decision about the national championships and elected to cancel that as well. But one thing I have discovered is that there is a gene in all extension educators and volunteers is we never give up. And so we created a new tradition, and we started the first ever National 4-H Shooting Sports Quiz Bowl. The information is available on the website. It is free for all enrolled 4-H members to participate in. They can participate as an individual, or they can participate in a team. We will recognize individuals at the state level, the regional level, and the national level. There are 2 tests or 2 quizzes that will be launched on June 22nd and be available to take all the way through the 26th. One is for juniors. It has 30 questions in it. The one for seniors, intermediates, and seniors will have 50 questions in it. We are hosting it through the Alabama 4-H program through 4-H Online. So there have been questions, well, we're in Vermont. We already use 4-H Online. Can we mix those? Much like when you go to Grand Island for the national championships, you have to register through Nebraska. So all registrations will be taken through the Alabama 4-H Online portal. Reason being is that we need to be able to collect the names, compare the data that we get to get information back out to everybody. The resources that you see there, study materials, please don't let that deter any of your young folks from participating. A lot of this information they should already know. So have them go through those. Each one of those disciplines will be represented within the contest questions that are being asked. Questions are multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank. Kahoot is the platform that we're using. So when youth get on there, not only do they have to answer the question correctly to get a score, but it's also based on the time it takes them to answer a question and also the streak that they have in terms of answering questions. So if a child got all 30 questions answered, there'd be a streak for 30. They'd get points for getting the correct answers and then the time it took them to do that. So the intent is to just have these young folks have a fun and educational time at a time where we were expecting us to have state contests and national championships and things like that. We have been receiving a lot of excitement about it, And I think Shannon is on the line here as well, and we're happy to answer any questions. I can tell you that it's been a joint effort between the Oregon 4-H program, the Alabama 4-H program, and the Arkansas 4-H program to bring this to everybody. So, got questions, anybody?
I'm monitoring the chat. I don't know if y'all can hear me. I kind of always feel like I'm at some kind of seance when I'm at one of these things, you know, can you hear me? But right now I am, yes, we're signing up. We've had questions mostly from New Hampshire, Vermont, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for all your questions, because that's going to help us make a stronger potential future contest, whether we use 4-H online or not. There has to be some kind of landing page. So this year, as Dave said, and just kind of we were just trying to turn something out that was meaningful, that kind of fidelity to the program and the curriculum and materials. So because Alabama 4-H had you know, a national invitational before, there are Buckmasters, we had some experience with that. So I apologize for some of the aggravations of 4-H online. One of the questions some of you guys have had has been about the forms, like help forms. Since this is a virtual setting, we have disabled some of those fields that used to be mandatory. So just skip through anything that doesn't seem like it's mandatory. We don't need to know if your child takes Benadryl, you know, so skip over all that stuff. There's the obvious stuff we do have to have, not just for, you know, our data collection and compilation, but just for reporting and evaluation purposes. So we ask you to bear with us, appreciate your patience, and we do appreciate all the questions. I'm trying to put together a FAQ, so, you know, but we hope that y'all feel comfortable reaching out to Dave. If he can't answer it, he just forwards it to me, and I just forward it to Angel, our 4-H admin. But folks are signing up. I'll take a look today to see if the numbers look pretty strong. But Larry is saying that in the chat, one message he's getting is that they are overdosing on screen time. We get that. Yes, we do. But this is optional. We just, you know, we just want you to, you know, consider this something that's a fun opportunity to give kids closure to their club year, and an opportunity for maybe county, regional, state, and national recognition and achievement. You know, it's really the only way we can reach them right now, and there's no substitute for being out on the range, burning powder and slinging arrows. But that being said, you know, thank you guys for promoting this opportunity and for being patient with us while, you know, we're in this new delivery mode. So I'm going to toss it back to Dave as I'm reviewing the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat
So
here.
one-
Go ahead, Shannon.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I was just
I'm
saying,
looking
it looks like it's been disabled, so that's good.
looking at the chat here, and the answer to the question about the time control. What I discovered when I took this, I participated in this quiz multiple times to see how it rolls out. Reading the answers and making sure you get the correct